What about me? No, they like Melania better. That wasn't good. I don't know if that was good. I'm okay with it. I'm okay.
I mean, how weak can you look right there? And then we know from covering Russian state regime media, one of the things they do there frequently, and we know they get their directives from Putin, they show these nudes of Melania kind of frequently, and then they mock Donald Trump and they mock Melania. So I think Putin was mocking Melania there. And then finally, last night, a reporter asked Donald Trump, you said you believe Putin wants peace, but he just attacked Ukraine yesterday. What makes you think he wants peace? Here, play this clip.
You mentioned that you believe Putin wants peace, but he just attacked Ukraine yesterday. So what makes you think that he wants peace?
Well, he's in a war, you know. I mean, nobody said don't. They're fighting, they're attacking each other, and people are dying all the time. He's in a war. He's fighting a war. Nobody said he was going to stop. I think, is it terrible? Yeah, it's terrible. I do. I think it's terrible.
Can you weigh in on President Biden? President Biden was diagnosed.
Now that's the complicity with Putin. They're not just fighting a war. I mean, Putin unlawfully invaded the nation of Ukraine, and he's trying to exterminate it. Let's bring in Ned Price. Ned Price is an intelligence and national security professional. He spent more than a decade at the CIA. He served at the White House National Security Council, spokesman for the United States Department of State, and deputy to the United States ambassador to the United Nations. Ned, you have a wealth of knowledge, probably just the same amount as anybody out there in terms of the most knowledge on this type of topic that exists. Just break it down for us, what I just shared with you.
Yeah, Ben, I think you provided a really good snapshot in time. And I think every time we discuss where we are and where the Trump administration has placed us in the context of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, it's worth a periodic reminder that President Trump claimed that he would have this conflict resolved on day one. We are now about 4 months into this administration. That was about 119 days ago. Clearly, President Trump has not solved this conflict. So to your point, what has he done? And I think really three things stand out, each of which are in their own way sort of quintessentially Trumpian. Number one, rather than solve this problem, he has actually made the underlying challenge worse. And I say that because if you look at all of the metrics, it is undeniable that Ukraine was in a stronger position militarily, diplomatically on January 19th of 2025 than it is today in May of 2025, some 4 months later. And that is almost entirely because the Trump administration has ripped the rug out from under Ukraine. The potential that the Biden gave to Ukraine to develop this leverage on the battlefield with international unity and international consensus has been almost fully destroyed. Meanwhile, President Trump is almost every day welcoming President Putin back into the international fold, ending the isolation that the United States worked so hard to achieve with dozens of countries around the world as part of our efforts to give Ukraine leverage and to impose necessary costs and consequences on Moscow for this brutal invasion. Number two, he is now, in his very Trumpian way, really falsely claiming a win. He is falsely claiming credit, in this case, not for solving the conflict, because not even in Donald Trump's warped mind is he able to claim that he has solved the conflict, but he is now claiming that the name of the game was just getting the two sides talking, and that because President Putin yesterday on the phone call promised him that he would send a memo to Ukraine with his demands, that they're now off to the races, and peace is going to start blooming any moment now. Number one, the two sides have long been talking. They've been at low levels, tactical issues, but they've long been talking. So Donald Trump didn't create that. Number two, even if they continue talking, which is a big if, and I say that because the Russian negotiator who did meet with the Ukrainians last week ended that session by invoking Peter the Great. Not to say that Peter the Great created peace, but to say that Peter the Great actually fought Sweden for 21 years to illustrate how long this conflict could go on. So even if they do continue talking, the big if there, That's certainly no guarantee that this will end with a just and durable peace. And I think chances for that are becoming slimmer by the day. But then number three, what Trump did yesterday that is so Donald Trump of him, it is almost hard to put into words. He's now essentially passing the buck. He is telling the Russians and the Ukrainians, he actually said in his statement yesterday, only the two of you have the ability to understand how complex these issues are. So over to the two of you. And by the way, the new Pope has mentioned that he's happy to host talks under his auspices. So he's really trying to offload this. You know, Ben, Carolyn Levitt, and I don't say this often, but she actually did something unusual yesterday because she told the truth. She said something like, Donald Trump has grown frustrated and weary of this conflict. It is very clear that he has realized just how intractable this is, not because of Ukraine, but because Putin is committed to continuing this aggression, committed to his maximalist goals. And rather than do what would be the natural thing to do and the smart thing to do to increase the pressure on Russia, to increase the assistance to Ukraine, President Trump is just trying to wash his hands of it and to turn it over to the parties and to turn it over to the new Pope.
Turn it over to the new Pope, just as kind of a crazy, hey, Pope, I'm not going to do the negotiation. You just became the Pope. You want to become a mediator of Russia's unlawful invasion of Ukraine. I just want to emphasis supplied right there to what you said at the end, because that's kind of crazy. And to me, I feel like the world sees that this is an unstable, unpredictable, but just downright kind of crazy person. I mean, we now see even people in his cabinet like Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, they have to try to create a framework for it. And I guess using our kind of initial Russian framing, Bessent calls it the crazy Ivan theory of negotiation. He's like, he's crazy Ivan. That's what we do. It's strategic uncertainty. We're being crazy because that's what is actually helpful. What do you say to the crazy Ivan theory from this administration?
Look, I've heard this a lot. President Trump's defenders claim that whatever you want to call it, his madman approach to the world has really unsettled the key players and created opportunities where opportunity didn't exist before. To my mind, the madman theory only works if it is just a theory and the president isn't actually a madman. In this case, I think the shortcoming may well be that it is not a strategy. President Trump is not playing 3D chess. He is really throwing up the board of checkers and just watching everything fall where it may. To the extent there is a theory behind President Trump's foreign policy, I don't think we see it in the crazy Ivan or the madman theory. I see it more in what we might call the sort of Trump first approach to the world. Obviously, a distortion of America first. And I think we see sort of this through line. We're so focused on what Trump says day to day or what he does day to day, but we sort of miss the corrupt forest for the trees too often. But I think if you take a step back, you do see a through line. And as someone who spent years at the CIA, the most jarring starting point for me, or when it became most crystallized for me, actually happened in the first Trump term. When I read for the first time President Trump's transcript with President Zelensky in that July 2019 infamous phone call where President Trump is alluding to security assistance and then says something like, "But I need you to do me a favor, though." And we see this pattern play out every single time that President Trump is willing to put his own personal interests, whether they're his political interests, as they were in that case, his reelection bid at the time, or his economic interests, and we can get to that, including with the most recent Gulf trip, over the national interest, over the interests of the American people, even when the casualty is our national security and foreign policy. And nothing for me crystallized it like that transcript, because it is clear as day, the black and white text. But I need you to do me a favor, though, telling that to one of America's closest partners, a bulwark against Russian aggression, not only against Ukraine itself, but places like Georgia and Moldova, where Russian forces and proxy forces remain stationed, or our allies in the Baltic, with whom we have an Article 5 commitment, one for all and all for one, if they do come under attack. But not only that, there is an unmistakable signal sent to President Putin, but to dictators, autocrats, and would-be autocrats around